Good evening, everyone. My name is Alma Alombro, and for tonight, I am tasked to discuss to you the chapter 2 of the book entitled The Schooling and the Politics of the Hidden Curriculum. So let's start. There has been debates that have emerged in the last couple of years regarding the notion of the hidden curriculum. So let's start why this debate on the hidden curriculum is important. The first one is it is important because it points the aspect of school life that links schools to the wider society. The second one, it points to the need to generate a new set of categories in which to analyze the function and mechanisms of schooling. According to Giroux, if the concept of the hidden curriculum serves as a valuable theoretical tool for radical educators, it will have to be resituated in a more critical discourse and become more attentive to the mode of critique and social theory developed by the Frankfurt School. And the character of this course of schooling has been considerably transformed. This is due to the following reasons: because of the financial cutbacks, the economic recession, and the shrinking job market. And because of that, progressive and radical critics of schooling have been reduced to a whisper. And because of that also, it is being replaced by the rhetoric of the cost efficiency experts. The changes in political issues translated into problems, which is that the imperatives of critique and negation give way to a mode of thinking. And in the 1960s and 1970s, educational reformers were at least able to speak with some impact. And that is, they argued that youth ought to be educated not for the present, but for a better future condition of the human race. And that is the idea of humanity. And also, the import business spokespersons, such as William Simon and David Packard, they urge major corporations to provide financial aid to universities and colleges, but not based on the academic reputation, but it is based on whether they support or they are sympathetic to free enterprise systems. And also, the increasing in the industrialization of schooling is obvious in the recent efforts of major corporations to establish endowed chairs of free enterprise in a number of major universities. The disregard that these efforts display for the conditions that safeguard academic freedom is matched only by the messianic fervor of their intent to spread the belief and values of the business community. The issues of withdrawal of resources from the schools and the redefinition of the curriculum, watered down pragmatic and instrumental terms cannot be viewed as problems solely due to demographic shifts in the population and short-term recessional tendencies in the economy. They also make an excuse that the existing economic crisis to legitimate the conservative modes of pedagogy to silence potential critics. According to Giroux, that the viable approach for developing a theory of classroom practice must be based on the theoretical foundation that acknowledges the dialectical interplay of social interest, economic power, and political power. The earlier debates performed the credible task of undermining the mainstream assumptions about school curriculum. According to them, school curriculum was socially and politically neutral and reducible to the engineering of discrete behavior. They also added that the schools seen as an agencies of socializations. And because of that, they also reason out that education is meant more than providing students with instructional goals and objectives. They added that schools did more than teach students how to read, write, compute, and master content. This is according to Meehan 1980. School came to be seen as social sites with a dual curriculum. And what is this curriculum? The first one is the overt and the formal. The second is the hidden and the informal. And the nature of school pedagogy is in overt and formal. These are the stated purposes of school rationales and also the teacher prepared objectives. In the hidden curriculum, on the other hand, these are the beliefs and values that are tacitly transmitted through social relations and routines that characterize day-to-day school experience. And the concerns with the hidden curriculum provided a starting point for the fundamental question of what schools actually do. It is viewed as a black boxes according to Carabel and Hasley, 1977. And what is the black box? The black box paradigm ignores the concrete experience of both teachers and students in the favor of larger structural analysis concerned with social achievement and input and output of social distribution. This is also according to Mehan, 1979. The function of schooling. While there was and continues to be considerable agreement over the function of schooling, I mean, disagreement over the function of schooling, the hidden curriculum theorists generally agreed that schools process not only knowledge but people as well. Schools are considered to be a social sites that controlled meaning, and also it's a cultural site that contributed to the formation of personality needs. Another is it's not only social and cultural sites, but school mediate between society and the consciousness of individuals. Analysis regarding the purpose, nature, and the consequence of socialization are myriad and complex. And there are two ideologies that are need to be differentiated. The first one is the ideologies about schools and ideologies in schools. The first one, the ideologies about school, this is according to Witty 1981. These are the what schools are for and how they work and of what it is possible for them to achieve. On the other hand, the ideologies in schools, these are the dispositions, structure, and modes of knowledge, pedagogic relationships, and informal culture that make up the daily character of the school itself. There are three important insights that, according to Giroux, have emerged that are essential to a more comprehensive understanding of the schooling process. And the first one is schools cannot be analyzed as institutions removed from the socioeconomic context in which they're situated. Number two, schools are political sites involved in the construction and control of discourse, meaning, and subjectivities. And the last one is the common sense values and beliefs that guide and structure classroom practice are not a priori knowledge universals, but social constructions based on specific normative and political assumptions. Let's look at the perspective on the hidden curriculum. It is defined as the unstated norms, values, and beliefs embedded in and transmitted to students through the underlying rules that structure the routines and social relationships in school and classroom life. Another meaning is it is a non-academic but educationally significant consequences of schooling that occur systematically but are not made explicit at any level of the public rationales of education. This is according to Elizabeth Vallance, 1973. The divergent analysis on hidden curriculum are deep-seated philosophical and ideological perspectives that clash over the very meaning and nature of social reality. According to Giroux, that before the concept of hidden curriculum can be used as a theoretical tool for developing a critical pedagogy, it is important to understand the critique that the ideological assumptions embedded in the perspective of the study. Giroux Giroux distinguished three basic approaches that characterize um, that characterize in dealing with a hidden curriculum. The first one is the traditional approach, liberal approach, and the radical approach. According to him, each of these approaches contains rather broad theoretical boundaries. Their respective distinctiveness rests with what might be called their problematic. And how do we define problematic? According to him, the problematic of any theoretical approach refers to the first one questions that govern its mode of social inquiry, and the second one, these are the questions not asked and the relationship between them. Giroux also added that all of the approaches to be analyzed fail to provide the theoretical elements essential for a comprehensive critical pedagogy. So let's start with the traditional approach. The traditional approach starts with the question, what makes the existing society possible? In traditional approach, the key assumption that governs its problematic is that education plays a fundamental role in maintaining the existing society. The traditional perspectives also, they are the proponent of functionalist perspective, and these proponents are Parsons, Driven, Jackson. According to According to them, schools are viewed as vehicles through which students learn the social norms, values, and skills they require to function and contribute to the existing society. In traditional approach, the hidden curriculum is explored through social norms and moral beliefs tacitly transmitted through socialization process that structure classroom social relationship. Also, it accepts uncritically the existing relationship between schools and the larger society. The, the transmission and reproduction of dominant values and beliefs via the hidden curriculum is both acknowledged and accepted as a positive function of the schooling process. And lastly, while the content of what transmitted through certain classroom practices is analyzed, the political and academic interests, such as beliefs and values legitimized, are taken for granted. Um, Traditionals also provide a theoretical service in illuminating how certain necessary societal values get tacitly transmitted via the hidden curriculum. Traditionalists, they do not question the underlying logic that gives shape to the institutionalized relationship among power, knowledge, and classroom control. So that's it. So let's go for the liberal approach. The liberal approach, the liberal perspective rejects most top to bottom models of pedagogy. And students are viewed simply as passive role bearers and recipients of knowledge, and knowledge as something to be learned rather than critically engaged. At the core of the liberal problematic is the question of how meaning gets produced in the classroom. By considering knowledge a social construction, liberal critics have focused their research on the variety of ways by which knowledge gets arbitrarily mediated and negotiated within classroom settings. There is also the empirical research that have emerged. The first one is the actual and hidden content of schooling. The second, the principles that govern the form and content of schooling. And the last one, the importance of seeing educational knowledge as common sense categories and typification selected from the larger culture and society that teachers, students, and researchers use to give meanings to their actions. To sum up, the liberal approach, the most sustained focus that this type of liberal critic has been exhibited is in the area of gender study. Who reproduced a gender code that either worked against the success of women in certain academic areas, or limited their economic opportunities in the wider society. And the hidden curriculum in this perspective was to be found in specific practices like cultural images, or forms of discourse that reinforce gender discrimination. And also the in liberal approach, the study of curriculum focuses on how the system of schooling serves to reproduce stability and cohesion in the wider society. The study of social structures is put aside for analysis of how people produce and negotiate classroom meanings. Traditional emphasis on consensus is replaced by a radical focus on conflict. Liberal concern is with the way teachers and students create meanings is replaced by a focus on social structures and construction of meaning. The last one is the radical approach. The radical perspective on the hidden curriculum provide valuable insights into the schooling process. First one, it explained the political function of schooling in terms of the important concepts on denomination. Second one, it points to the existence of the structural factors outside the immediate environment of the classroom as important forces influencing both the day-to-day experiences and the outcomes of the schooling process. Also, in the radical perspectives, both the theoretical and empirical work that dominate the approach, the focus is on the political economy of schooling. The central thesis is that the social relations that characterize the production process represent the determining force in shaping the school environment. In radical perspective, the school became factories for the working class, and it was alleged performed an insidious but efficient job of reproducing the existing class structure and labor force. To sum up, only little understanding of construction and social spaces that promote oppositional tendencies and behavior in schools. There is also a one-dimensional view of socialization. This is the observation of Giroux. And students and teachers do not simply comply with the oppressive features of schooling as radical critics suggest. In some cases, both teachers and students, they resist and they even modify school practices. Radical perspective fails to acknowledge or develop an adequate view of either consciousness, resistance, or culture. Also, this perspective has consistently ignored the existence of forms of dominance other than those of class oppression. Now, let's look at the hidden curriculum, a redefinition. So, this is a suggestion by Giroux that it needs to be redefined. First, the hidden curriculum must be redefined and resituated as a pedagogical concern. It must occupy a central in the development of curriculum theory. Curriculum theory and practice must integrate into its problematic a notion of critique that is capable of questioning normative assumptions underlying its logic and discourse. It must be used to analyze not only the social relations of the classroom and school, but also the structural silences and ideological messages that shape the form and content of knowledge. It must be seen as something more than interpretative tool buttressed with good intentions. The implication for classroom practice. There's an outline theoretical model. One of the major shortcomings of the existing literature on schooling and the hidden curriculum is that it has failed to develop a dialectical conceptual framework for grasping education as a societal process. Schooling must be analyzed as a societal process, one in which different social groups both accept and reject the complex mediations of culture, knowledge, and power that give form and meaning to the process of schooling. Power must be seen as a force that works both on people and through them. Power is not a static phenomenon. It is a process that is always in play. It must be viewed within a theory of totality, meaning school as both an institution and a set of social practices that must be seen in its integral connections with the realities of other socioeconomic and political institutions. And teachers should critically consider questions of where such a culture comes from, whose culture is being implemented, whose interests it serves, and how it gets inscribed and sustained in school discourse and social practices. It is essential that teachers take seriously not only the beliefs and routines of the school, but also the underlying meanings and experiences that characterize students from different socioeconomic groups and which exist in various degrees of compatibility and resistance to the dominant school culture. According to Giroux, a theory of dialectical critique begins with a rejection of the official representation of reality. Negativity refers to a thorough questioning of all universals and integration of those received truths and social practices that go unquestioned in schools because they are dressed in the discourse of objectivity and neutrality. And there is a slogan, don't think, simply follow the rules. According to Giroux, teachers should not accept this kind of reasoning. In his conclusion, he said that hidden curriculum as it currently exists in the literature fails to provide the theoretical elements necessary to develop a critical pedagogy based on a concern with cultural struggles in the schools. What is needed to move beyond this position is a view of the hidden curriculum that encompasses all the ideological instances of the schooling process that silently structure and reproduce homogenic assumptions and practices. Lastly, he said that while such an approach in and of itself will not change the larger society, it will provide the foundation for using the schools as important sites to wage counter hegemonic practices. So that's the end of my report for the chapter 2. Thank you very much and good evening.